For one reason or another, some games fly way under the radar. And whilst some games, like Call of Duty for example, get their fair share of credit, others you might not have ever even heard of. And what about these games? Why have some gotten the recognition they deserved, whilst others, which some claim are just as good, are unheard of? Today we're discussing the most slept on games, so don't go anywhere. First up is Vampire. Back in October 2019, Vampire was released just in time for Halloween. The game was set after World War I and features a doctor who is wrestling with his emotions after being transformed into a vampire. He must decide whether his lust for blood is a bigger urge than keeping his Hippocratic oath, all whilst introducing us to a slew of interesting characters. And most of these characters can be consumed for your character's gains, which make him all the stronger. What also makes this one stand out from the crowd is that you are under no obligation to kill innocents to get ahead, which can sometimes just be a bit of fun, am I right? The game gives a cool, slightly darker take on London and the interwar period. This one is an action role-playing game from Not Entertainment, which is available on Microsoft Windows, PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and Nintendo Switch. Have you guys played this one yet? The Evil Within 2 is up next. Stay with us. This one is available on PS4, Xbox One, and PC, and was the follow-up to The Evil Within from Resident 4 Evil director Shinji Mikami. And with such a big name attached to the original project, it came as quite a surprise that it performed so poorly. The second offering was much better, however, and we think the reason its reception was so poor was because of how disappointing the first game was. The sequel, with John Johannes at the helm, was a little weirder, but much more polished, and the storyline was excellent in its originality. The gameplay was also a particular highlight for this survival horror game, but it appears as though its fate was already sealed with the disappointing performance of the first game. Tango Gameworks, the studio behind this sequel, might have been better completely ripping up any idea of a sequel and taking this premise forward under a completely different title. At least it wouldn't have suffered from any name association problems thanks to the lack of success of the first. Have you guys played The Evil Within 2? We're discussing The Surge next. Stay tuned. The Surge is a science fiction action RPG which is similar in some ways to both Elysium and Bloodborne. Developed by Deck 13 Interactive, the game offered an industrial setting, limb targeting system, and unique upgrades, which fans claimed it stand out from the competition, but for some reason, it didn't perform so well. But strangely, its sequel outperformed it, which is odd, but director Jan Close did an excellent job with The Surge. The game is designed in the Souls series and has players use an exoskeleton to do battle. You can also customize said exoskeleton, and the combat aspect of the game allows you, the player, to target different parts of the opponent's body, which can often end in your enemy losing a limb. Phew. At the time it dropped, The Surge received mixed reviews, but was credited for its sci-fi setting and customizable inventory. It can seem a little slow at times, but there is a certain satisfaction you get from exploring every area of the map. Have you guys played this one yet? Next up is Assassin's Creed Syndicate. Of course, the Assassin's Creed series is one of the most successful game franchises of all time, but Assassin's Creed Syndicate did not quite reach the heights of any of its more well-known siblings. However, the disappointing Assassin's Creed Unity from 2014 might have been partly to blame for Syndicate's poor performance, but they should really be judged on their own. The game was developed by Ubisoft Quebec and is an action-adventure stealth type similar to other games in the franchise, which allows players to freely roam the open-world game when not involved in missions. The game takes players to Industrial Revolution-era London and also features side missions, which are all designed with the game's main story in mind. Your main rivals are a street gang known as the Blighters, and you also have a choice of playing with two characters, twins called Jacob and Evie Fry, who is the first playable female character in the franchise. The game also introduces new weapons and systems, but there is no multiplayer mode on this one, unfortunately. Will you guys be having a go with this one? Nex Machina is next, coming now. Stay with us. This one is pretty cool shoot 'em up from House Marquee, played from a top-down perspective. The idea is to save your human brethren by shooting your way through enemies, whilst also looking out for weapon upgrades and other cool bits and pieces along the way. And involved in the design of this one was Eugene Jarvis, who made a career out of arcade-style shoot 'em ups, but whilst the game received generally positive positive reviews, their sales didn't really reflect them. Metacritic reported a score of 88 out of 100 for the PS4 version based on 45 reviews, which again questions why it performed so poorly. It was so good that it was nominated for PlayStation Game of the Year in 2017, along with a ton of other nominations, picking up a few wins along the way. Have you guys played this one before? Let us know how it was below. We have Shadow of the Tomb Raider now. This one was the last game in the Tomb Raider series, of which there were 12 games, and is one of the most underrated in the entire collection. The game was a little darker than fans of the franchise were used to and ties up Laura's origin story in a pretty bloody way. The game takes players to Peru, mainly but not limited to, and features all the stealthy bits players are used to, as well as all the action we have come to expect from the Tomb Raider games. But peculiarly, this one didn't garner as much attention as its predecessors. It's set about a year after the events of the previous game, Rise of the Tomb Raider, and features a third-person perspective style, like the other games in the franchise. And the latest effort features a few little adjustments to the gameplay, and little added cool features which allow Laura to hold her breath longer and rappel down a cliff face whilst using only her climbing axe and rope. And of course, you're still able to hunt animals and use whatever materials you find along the way, whilst also taking part in side quests. This one is one of the more famous franchise games on today's list, and whilst it did receive largely favorable reviews, it did receive lower sales than other popular releases that year of 2015. Next up, it's Call of Duty Advanced Warfare. Available across all big platforms, this one is of course a part of the fabled Call of Duty franchise. But for one reason or another, it did not quite live up to the hype of the other games, and as such seems to have been largely forgotten. It didn't help that Black Ops 4 and Modern Warfare were so successful, but the Sledgehammer Games title fit quite nicely into the franchise storyline, with an exciting campaign with touches on the danger of a privatized army. It also has a pretty cool multiplayer component, but the first-person shooter did offer a few significant changes, such as holographic projections. However, despite receiving generally favorable reviews from many critics, it didn't perform as well as other titles in the franchise for whatever reason. Maybe a bit of Call of Duty overkill? Who knows? Will you guys be getting into this one at some point? Let us know below. And finally, it's Sunset Overdrive. Stay tuned. Released back in 2014 for the Xbox One and PC, Insomniac Games' Sunset Overdrive was actually quite brilliant. The game is a blend of third-person actions with traversal mechanics, but comes with a very lighthearted sense of humor, which is great for all ages. And whilst it doesn't have the name recognition as some of Insomniac's other titles, such as Spider-Man and Ratchet & Clank, this one is really great. The action-adventure game is set from a third-person perspective in a dystopian world, which has been taken over by mutants. The game's combat allows players to attack in a fast-paced way, whilst also utilizing things like ziplining and parkour, which is all pretty cool. And whilst, like many other games on today's list, it garnered pretty favorable reviews, for some reason it didn't take off sales-wise. Critics lauded it for its ability to make players laugh and its stellar gameplay, which again suggests it should have been more successful than it actually was. Have you guys played this one? As usual, thanks for stopping by today, and remember to join us next time for some more fun and games. And don't forget to share today's video with any gamers you might know of. Also, remember to subscribe to our channel so you don't miss out on any more great bits and pieces going forward. Bye guys.